was the reaction when you said, I'm giving up finance and I'm going to go forward with, a champagne brand of my own?
When I told my family first, they thought I was crazy. And my stepfather passed away. He said, "So you have all this great education. You sat here, you built this great career, and you want to go do what? You want to sell wine. What are you going to go door to door, knock on people's doors?" But basically, a lot of people thought I was crazy. I was starting over as a 40 plus year old woman. I didn't know that I was building the champagne. I just knew I wanted to do something with the champagne. Did I know it was going to grow into what it is today? Absolutely not. Did I have the structure together? Absolutely not. What I did know is I knew myself. Like I'll always bet on me because I know that I come through.
Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Cynthia Chaplin, and this is Voices. Every Wednesday, I will be sharing conversations with international wine industry professionals, discussing issues in diversity, equity, and inclusion through their personal experiences working in the field of wine. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your pods.
Hello, this is Cynthia Chaplin, and today on Voices, I am so excited to have Marvina Robinson. Marvina is the founder and the CEO of Stuyvesant Champagne. It's the very first champagne brand created by a Black American woman. In 2018, she transitioned from a 2-decade career in finance on Wall Street to life as a small business owner. And the aim was to create an inclusive and welcoming community that fosters connections, celebrates diversity, champions empowerment, and introduces people to the amazing world of bubbly delights. So, completely up my street. I'm very happy about this. Marvina has also evolved her business to include a 2,000 square foot tasting room in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And before we started talking, she was mentioning that she's got some new things coming up, so we will get to that as well. First of all, I know you're a busy woman, so thank you so much for giving us your time today, Marvina. It's great to meet you.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Well, I reached out to you in light of the action being taken by the new US administration to put an end to DEI initiatives. It's hard for us in Europe to understand exactly what's going on. So I'm really glad we connected because your story is so enormously inspiring. And I know you'll have some things to say about DEI and wine in America. But first of all, let's get some backstory because I love your backstory. So you've got degrees from Norfolk State University and a master's degree in statistics from Columbia, and you've worked for Morgan Stanley and Citco and JP Morgan. So what was it like being a young Black woman in this notoriously white world of Wall Street?
That is a very interesting question. So I would say the good, the bad, and the ugly. Wall Street was an incredible learning experience, but it was very far from easy, right? As a young Black woman in that space, I constantly had to prove myself, not just through my work, but in how I carried myself, how I navigated rooms, and how I built relationships. The finance industry was long dominated by, white men, and breaking into that world meant being twice as prepared, twice as resilient, and often twice as patient, right? I remember getting passed over for promotions or not being heard and just feeling uncomfortable. And, working on a trading floor, I would be one sprinkle of a Black woman sitting on a desk, not in the administrative world. But I also must credit my time on Wall Street, because it sharpened my business skills, taught me how to negotiate and ultimately gave me the confidence and reassurance to stepping into the world of entrepreneurship. That's why I said I start with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't change not one thing. When I was in undergrad, I studied biology. Did not go into biology. In graduate school, well, let me take another step back. So when I was in graduated from undergrad, I started working at Morgan Stanley as a temp. I wanted to go to Cancun with my friends. My mother said, "There's no money for that nonsense." So she said, "Go get find you a job and you pay for it." So realized and said, "Let me just find me a quick temp job," because I was always good with computers, programming, like quadrupro, dating my age. And I went and ended up on the treasury desk at Morgan Stanley. And I never really knew what finance was. I was like, whoa, this is something interesting. Like these big double doors opened up, and there was this whole world of the trading floor. And I was on this treasury desk, and I was just in amazement. And I worked under the head of this desk, Steve D'Antonio, and I would just have casual conversations, nothing too serious, but I would poke questions and just ask about little things unintentionally, not to be too prying because I didn't know where I was. And I'm a person, I observe before I speak. I don't come in making all this noise. I want to know what's going on. I started looking at the players of the floor, like who's who, what departments is what, why is this rallying? This is like equity, this is fixed. I'm seeing how it's moving. And I was mesmerized. And then I realized, like I wanted to be in the finance industry. So the one good thing about Morgan Stanley, they always, as in most large firms, they always have like a visual directory. So I would look up different people because I would know who the players of the floor, who were the leaders. Players, I meaning leaders of the floor, MDs, and I would look up their career. Right, it's posted like what schools they went to. So a lot of people I was saw maybe even analysts or associates. I try to see like how did they break into all this, and I would see what schools they went to. So from there, I targeted to make sure when I went to graduate school to go to an Ivy League school so that I can get recruited out to be in this roles coming in at associate level. Um, and I was, Morgan Stanley was great. That's where I started out. I ended up transferring to be financial products coordinator because again, I didn't know these products. And as a financial products coordinator, I came in as an analyst and I took every single class. One, it was free, and I educated myself. And then I began to meet people within the firm, and I would just ask questions. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I made sure I was competitive. My application was competitive. I Fun fact is, I did not want to go to Columbia University. I wanted to go to Carnegie Mellon, the computational finance program. I got rejected. I cried outside my firm for like about an hour. And my boyfriend at the time says, listen, ain't no time for no tears. Go get you some Visine, drop in your eyes, and get back on the floor. And that's what I did. And I just found alternative schools in Columbia, which is probably a great choice because I've made great friends, great relationships in there, and it's continues to evolve.
I love that Columbia was your second choice. That makes me so happy.
I'm
But
so glad I ended up there.
well, it's great because it's so interesting how women are listeners. Women do tend to sort of you know take the time to feel out what's going on around them before they start trying to bust everything up. So I love that that was your you had a strategy and it worked. It worked and you were hugely successful. So um, what I need to ask, before we go any farther, is here you are in the world of finance. The double doors are open. You're doing your thing. What got you interested in wine? I mean, we all love wine, but you've said it was a hobby initially for you. So how did the hobby start? What drew you to champagne?
So there's like a two-part answer, and then they both merge together. So being a young woman with my friends, my girlfriends, we used to. Two of us went to I was the only one that went to a separate undergrad. So we would call ourselves Open Quote the Fly Girls of the neighborhood. And when we came home, we wanted to really, kind of reproduce what was in the video. So back then a lot of the videos people were popping champagne. So we would all chip in and buy a bottle of champagne, and we would sit on our stoops and we would drink like out of plastic cups. We would pull in our money to like really like think, okay, thinking we're doing something major. And we would sit on a stoop and we would drink and just catch up. Again, the other side is in my industry, working in finance, you do entertain, you go out a lot. Me and liquor were not best friends. So I went through my Cosmo phase, Sex in the City, but those cosmos will sneak up on you real fast. So I had to find something right. I had to find something that I felt balanced, but also I felt professional, always grabbing a drink and something that I loved. And then at the same time, I started drinking like sparkling wines or white wine spritzer. And, just really following my palate, not knowing that's what it was called back then, just following my palate. And then, you go to like Prosecco, then you like go to like one night I think I had champagne. I'm like, so this is and I realized this is what I like, this is what I drink with my friends. And understanding like what's the value. Like I remember going into a store. Um I went to Crate and Barrel right on Broadway and Astor Place, and I went to buy some new it's the day I found out one day we got our bonuses or something like that. I was very happy. Um, so I went to buy some new glasses from Crate and Barrel. I had my first apartment in Brooklyn, and I went to buy some new glasses. And I said, "Oh, I'm gonna get me some new bubbly, So you go into the store and I'm like thinking, I'm looking at these prices. Obviously, shopping in Manhattan is significantly more than shopping in Brooklyn. So, a little shell shock. So I was just looking. I said, well, I can get 2 bottles if I buy this. But I'm like, but this isn't champagne. This is this. And that's how I started digging between the two. So then I started talking to my friends, and because we were going to celebrate my 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 one promotion, my bonus numbers. So what we did is I said, well, I'll get 1 bottle of bubbly, the more expensive one, and 2 bottles of the cheaper stuff, respecting the cheaper stuff, whatever it was, it was. And when we were opening it, we opened the first 2 bottles of the same, and then we went to the last bottle, and it was like an aha moment. I was like, oh, whoa, I taste the difference. This is what I like. And then they just kind of merged together, and it just started really with a genuine love of champagne. I started exploring not just drinking it, but really understanding it, the craftsmanship, the history, the artistry behind each bottle, knowing that champagne is the most labor intense wine, right? A single bottle takes minimally 15 months to be produced, but it's significantly much longer once you add on like the aging to get the different tasting profiles. There's a whole lot that goes to produce one bottle. And I wasn't just drawn to wine broadly, it was like champagne specifically is what captivated me. So people are like, oh, you don't know the difference. I'm like, yes, I do know the difference. And basically, over the years, the passion evolved into something more intentional. I started traveling to Champagne, going back and forth. And I would just want to meet different producers or going on different tours and just tasting different cuvées. But one thing about me, I call myself like Dora the Explorer. I don't follow the norm, right? Like everybody would like to go to the big houses, the well known. Yes, they're nice, but I like to go to the more off beef pattern and just find things. So even to this day, when I want to find like a new house to visit, I go to I go to wine shops or these little wine bars, and specifically ones that carry like smaller brand. Grower champagne. I'm like going for a blend. Grower champagne. I look for those, and then I go to their house and I taste them. So one thing you probably don't know is that I also own the importing side of the business, and I also import over champagne that's not imported here. So I find smaller grower champagne, and then I import them over. I help customers build their champagne collection. I'm beginning to host like private champagne dinners, where this gives the growers a seat at the table where people can appreciate it in smaller forms, not just throwing them on shelves, but giving them full appreciation. So, and understanding the tasting, the story behind the label, so that people really understand what really goes on into this bottle. So that's still my hobby.
I could tell the passion is there. Like, well, and it's storytelling is really what makes wine come alive in a way that other products don't. So, having that ability, and I can see it on your face and hear it in your voice of that, real passion where you really want to lift up the producer, make sure the drinker is enjoying it and gets the whole experience. That is what makes things go from just a drink on your table to something that's like really transformative in your life. So you decided to make the move from what you called your good career, you know, in 2019. You were 42, young, but still that's like a risky time to drop your good career. What did your friends and your family say when you told them you were going to set off and start the first Black American woman owned champagne brand? You'd already been doing all this crazy amount of traveling. I know you were flying out to Champagne on Friday nights and flying back on Monday morning. They couldn't have been too surprised about this, but what was the reaction when you said, I'm giving up finance and I'm going to go forward with a champagne brand of my own?
First of all, when I told my family first, they thought I was crazy. And my stepfather, passed away. He said, "So you have all this great education. You sat here, you built this great career that you've billowed for, and you're making your own good money. And you want to go do what? You want to sell wine. What are you going to go door to door, knock on people's doors?" And my feelings was very hurt. Um, and then my mother was, I was at my parents' house, and I was like, okay, time for me to go. So that's why I'm so glad I have my own apartment. So And I walked out. My mother followed behind. She's like, "Don't worry about him. You'll be fine. You'll be fine." But basically, a lot of people thought I was crazy. Again, starting a career over as a woman after the age of 40, that's hard because as you're getting older, as the norm wants us to think, and it is a good way to think because I'll come back to that part anyway. I was starting over as a 40 plus year old woman, and I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that I was building the champagne. I just knew I wanted to do something with the champagne. I know I wanted to open up like a small champagne bar. I have my private label. I wanted to be the private label of the bar. Did I know it was going to grow into what it is today? Absolutely not. Did I have the structure together? Absolutely not. What I did know is I knew myself. Like I'll always bet on me because I know that I come through. And I just said, I'm going to take that risk. And at the end of the day, let's just say I failed or I'm failing. I do have a great education background. I do have a good career, though it might shift a little bit as far as if I went back and threw my resume on the markets right now because I've been out of the industry for a little bit, but I have a whole new different skill set that I can bring to a table, right? It's like you're thinking of, you're bringing a thought process to life. Not a lot of people can do that. And it does take a special amount of skill set, understanding there's highs and lows because it hasn't always been high. There's probably more lows than highs. But I always tell myself, I don't always tell myself, but I have to remind myself when you're in the lows is the time to get more creative, because that's where it comes in at. Exactly.
And you absolutely did that because, as I said, this was sort of 2019 when you were making this transition, and the original goal was to start this champagne bar, but COVID hit. I think every story right now has this one line that says, "And then COVID." So, you started up and then COVID hit. So, what happened at that point? You'd only been in it sort of for a year or so. How did you pivot? What did you do next?
So, and I just want to clarify one thing. Though I launched B Stuyvesant in 2019, it was privately. I didn't really only announce it to friends and family. I publicly launched it in 2020, right at the beginning of COVID, and that was a curveball I never really saw coming. Right, right. The champagne bar was my original dream because I wanted it to bring people together to really appreciate champagne. I didn't want a massive bar. I only wanted to hold no more than 20 people and really enjoy, these beautiful wines that I was going to bring into, right? I just basically had to reassess what was going on, figure out how do I come about, what's my new plan now. And somebody had asked me for my inventory. And at first I had, politely declined. But then I was like, if you want it, sure. And in my head, I said, "What you gonna do? Like, if it don't sell, you're gonna give me back the bottles anyway, or I can just take them back." Not knowing all the legal things around there. And you know what? The brand actually took off. My first store, excuse me, that I actually retailed at was a Happy Cork in Brooklyn, and we're still sold there 5 years later. Um, and basically I was walking to because I didn't live too far, so I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna walk." So I walked over to the opening, and I can't remember what day it was, but I was thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna watch Law and Order when I get home. I made some food." I'm just thinking of all the things that I'm doing when I get home, not thinking nothing. Then I come around this corner. I'm like, "What is this line for?" I'm looking like I'm not waiting on no line. Here's my New York personality. I'm not waiting on no line. I'm like, I'm going straight to the front. And as soon as I got there, I'm like, "Oh, I just need to go inside real quick." And everybody was cheering for me. I'm like turning around looking like, what they cheering for? And people were there to come out and support. And it was such a great experience that I didn't even really know how to truly intake it, and I look back and it's just I don't toot my own horn because I feel like I'm always behind. I'm trying to, make sure the brand stays afloat. This is a business that I don't have any investors. There's no loans. So it's basically I reinvest into the company. And now we want to, February 12th, 6 days actually, is our 5-year anniversary.
Congratulations. That's amazing. Good timing to talk to you.
Thank you. So it's like, most businesses fail within the first 2 years. We've been hit with some hard times. We've been in the red before, but I'm happy that this business that I thought in my head, this concept came to life. I originally had a shared warehouse, which was really small, really dirty, that I worked so hard to clean so that I felt like this was my space. I even cleaned the other person's side so that I felt like we got to keep this up, like, because not we, because they didn't care. I care, as a woman. I'm like, I'm thinking of all the little things when I walk in. I want to be comfortable. I don't want nothing flying around. Um, and then came, COVID, have to empty out the space, and my apartment became my workspace. The kitchen was the conference room, the backyard was the workspace and the storage space. It was just champagne everywhere.
Which isn't a bad thing in the middle of COVID, to be fair.
It's not a bad thing, but it was we had a strict schedule, so we were moving in and out, at that time it was terrible to be shipping anywhere. And I'm happy where ended up coming into a space in Brooklyn and Bedford Stuyvesant, a storefront, which we stayed there for about 2 years, which is a great space. But I kind of wanted to envision more. And then we ended up moving to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which is our home for a little while. We're going to be home for a little while, where we were in one building and then we actually moved to a different building. So it gives us more space. It opens up and it's better fit for our consumers, and which is what we're working on now, trying to finalize construction. And we have a big grand opening reveal in April. Though we're opening now, like everything will be completed by April. So it's a work in progress.
Well, let's get to the name, because the name is super important. So on the label, it's B Stuyvesant, which I used to live in Brooklyn too, so we know it's Bedford Stuyvesant, it's Bed Stuy. And I just want to talk about this a little bit, because I know it's an homage to the neighborhood where you grew up in Brooklyn. So tell me what it feels like every time you pick up that bottle and you see B Stuyvesant on the label.
You know what? I look and see, like, this is something I fought hard for, because the name was rejected by the Champagne Committee. So I had to come up with different reiterations. A lawyer at the time that was working with me, or he wasn't on my pay side, but he was just giving some general advice. He was like, "Oh, you shouldn't name it Stuyvesant. Stuyvesant, it's a huge slave trade holder name, and blah 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 blah." And I was like, you know what? There's good and bad in everything, and I am choosing to reflect the good side. Naming my champagne B Stuyvesant was a way carrying my roots with me into an industry where people like me really have a seat at the table, right? So when you're picking up that bottle wherever you're at, you have a little bit of Brooklyn with you, and you can say, right there it is, exactly.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. I think it's so great. And it's so meaningful. I think not only to you, but also to the people who are drinking B Stuyvesant in Brooklyn. That is a gift that you've given back to, the neighborhood that nurtured you when you were young. And I think that is, really invaluable and emotional and interesting. It's funny because you've said that what truly distinguishes B Stuyvesant is your unwavering commitment to inclusivity and diversity. And as a woman owned business, you're bringing a unique perspective to the champagne industry, and your brand represents the celebration of empowerment and authenticity and inclusivity, and the belief that champagne should be accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or their status. So let's talk about this. Let's just, talk about everything that's happening, DEI in America right now. What's going on in real time on the ground in New York? What are you seeing? How do you think the anti DEI policies of the new administration are going to affect the wine industry?
DI is actually more than a corporate buzzword, right? It's about real access, real representation, and real opportunities. In New York, we're seeing businesses and organizations still pushing for diversity despite political headwinds, right? But there's no doubt that rolling back DI initiatives at a national level make things a whole lot harder. The wine and champagne industry is, although tough for minorities to break into, whether it's producers, importers, or business owners, without D&I initiatives, it makes it a lot more harder for funding, partnerships, and visibility, with even more challenging. That's why, like, smaller brands, independent brands like mine and myself, we're proving that inclusivity just isn't a trend. It's a necessity for real growth. In addition, right, I have had business on DEI initiatives, right? I always say I don't want to be targeted as, like, just come to me for Black business, right? Come to me because my product is excellent quality, right? Though I accept the business, but understand that I'll introduce you to something you don't know of, right? This amazing B Stuyvesant. I've gotten extra questions in the past. Oh, is this real champagne? What I really want to say, well, what is fake champagne? But then you have to take a level to educate people and really introduce. And it's going to be a lot tougher. And I feel like it's a time for when you have to dig deep to find more creativity, find different marketing strategies, find new partners. I feel like we have a great customer strength, so we definitely have support there. And I just look at it as it's a time to we are in an back in an abnormal and just have to push forward. People look at B Stuyvesant, even when I talk to distributors, oh, why should we buy this brand? Oh, you're not Don P, you're not this, you're not that. I'm like, I don't strive to be that. I strive to introduce you to this grower champagne that has a full hands on from the beginning to the end. Everything is grown, harvested, bottled in Champagne, France, in Epernay, and I only partner with one vineyard. And we discussed this together. The tasting notes, our bottling experience, our packaging is all unique. The labels on the bottles, I designed them in PowerPoint. All I did was take my Wall Street days from doing decks a lot. All I did was put a little triangle or a little rectangle and I put our name on it, had somebody do the CMYK coloring for them to print. And that's really it.
There goes my whole graphic team. Stroop out the window.
So, right. So that's all I did. And that's another thing where I didn't have to hire marketing for that. But then it's also a way how you become more creative and save money. Like my carbon footprint is all over this business, all over the bottles, everything. I visit France on a regular basis. I'm just not here based in New York. It's very rare you catch me in the States. So my friends always say, oh, where are you at now? I'm like, oh, I'm home. Let's catch up. Because I like to I'm a hands-on person. So that's how I work with my brand and also how I meet other growers or people in the industry.
Yeah, well, I think it's so important, especially with, what's really an artisan, product like that, where you're dealing with only one vineyard. I love the fact that you protect the vineyard. You don't disclose who it is. You're working with them yourself, your boots on the ground there. You're tasting, you're barrel sampling, doing all those things, and you protect that unique character that's your wine. You're deciding what that wine is going to be like when it gets to my glass. And that's something that, again, is part of the storytelling of what you're creating and what you're bringing, back to Bed-Stuy, and what you're sort of manifesting with this champagne brand. You said at one point that your mission is to inspire others to pursue their dreams, regardless of the challenges they face. So, how are you modeling this mission? Do you think there's enough mentorship and allyship available for young Black women in the wine industry? This is something I deal with a lot. I'm a wine educator. I work with a lot of people trying to find scholarships for students and things like that. What would you like to see happen to strengthen inclusivity and diversity in our wine sector? Because it's not easy. And this new policy is going to make it a hell of a lot harder.
I would say this, I model this by doing the work, right? By showing that it's possible to carve out a space in this industry, even when the odds are against you. That's part one of one because people can't believe it. They can't see somebody else doing it, right? That's the sad part of it, right? I also make a point to share my journey openly, being, showing people what I do, like coming here to talk about it. And representation matters, right? People who see me that look like me, that's in this rare industry, whether it's champagne or even any type of other varietal of wine, it's rare to see a Black person in it, male or woman, but just significantly women, it's less. So to see it sit in that seat, that's why I'm here. When young Black women see someone like me owning a champagne brand, it signals to them that they too can build something extraordinary, right? We don't always have to follow, though they're great careers and professions, right? Whether you're being a doctor, lawyer, educator, very important to be within the political industry, but you can find these off-beaten patterns. When I was younger, no, I needed to be where the money was at. I need to know how many was zeros behind my salary. I would never thought to be an entrepreneur. And I remember somebody asking me, "Oh, let's invest in this." I'm like, I did not go to school to be an entrepreneur. I am not struggling, and look at where I'm at now. So it's important, and it's important. I always tell people, follow your follow your dreams smartly. If you have a dream that you can't fully finance right now, keep working, and then also begin to build it on the side. And at one point, maybe it'll get to a point where you want to leave your job. I did it oppositely, where I was just so frustrated and I was becoming a mean person. I just left, right? And I just was slowly. I just said, "This is what I'm doing now." Um, so I always tell people, find what works for you, and then also make your dreams work at the same time.
Well, I'm going to ask you an out of the box question now. So, I know you've got this unwavering belief in the potential for innovation and diversity in the champagne industry. And, we know the champagne industry in France is not exactly overflowing with diversity. You spend a lot of time there. I've spent time there as well. Um, it's fair to say that women have always played a pretty important role there since the 1800s with the likes of, Veuve Clicquot, and other women who were very instrumental in building the profile of Champagne. But do you think the region has become more welcoming to people of color, to women, to LGBTQI plus and other unrepresented communities that we want to open the door and make people feel welcome? What's sort of your take on this? Because we're looking at things now where celebrities have champagne brands and wine brands and spirit brands and tequila brands and things like this. Do you think that's helpful? Is that changing the story? And Champagne's a very old historic wine region. Is this, have you seen change over the years when you've been traveling back and forth? And do you think these celebrity brands are helpful?
All right. So the Champagne region is steeped in tradition, and while change is happening, it's beyond slow. And I have a story to add there, right? There's definitely more diversity amongst consumers. That's 100%, right? But when it comes to actual producers, ownership, those numbers are still very small. You think about a champagne, the vineyards are passed down, are generational, right? So you can't just slide in and get there, right? However, I do believe visibility is increasing with that. Now, I will say when I travel to Champagne, and I kind of go to a lot of the same spots. So some people may know my face because there's not a lot of people like me popping in and out. You still get that look, right? You still get that question, or you get that, when they ask, "Oh, what are you doing out here?" I went to this very largely champagne event in New York, and it's very publicized. I won't name the name of it. And it was this past December, or no, I think it was October or November. I can't remember. And we were sitting at a table. It's about like 600 people in the room. And I would say out of 600 people who were not serving, it was no more than 10 to 15 Black people in there, male and female, right? So, intimidation, number one. Right. And I'm not easily intimidated, but when I'm walking, it's the first time I've ever been to this event. So I didn't really know what to expect. So I'm walking, and when you come, you can bring bottles of champagne. So, of course, I said, "Oh, you know what? I'll bring some B Stuyvesant." I have two releases that haven't been released, and I had some other ones I just not thinking. And people have some amazing beauties of bottles, vintages for like 20. It was amazing. And at my table, it was a table of probably about 30 people, 15 on each side. And everybody's just pouring champagne. People are sipping, people are talking. So here I come trying to be outside my shell. This is the same person my mother told me in graduate school, "Make friends, Marvina, be nice." I said, "Okay, I'm going to make friends and I'm going to be nice," right? So, because I don't know anybody. Well, I know a couple of people, but they weren't sitting at my table. So people are pouring. So I open a bottle and I pour to share. Two gentlemen were sitting next to me. We were already sipping. We were, they was telling me, I was telling them about these stars and they was asking about it. It gave me some good tips. And then I offered to pour this couple. They were actually from Champagne, so they had their own production. And I, just offering sharing because that's literally what everybody in the room is doing. It's no question asked. And she said, "Ooh," she like set her whole body back. "Ooh, I don't know this brand." And I looked at her and I was like, I felt like so small at that moment. The way she did it with her hands, her whole body shifted like I was giving her the plague or some rare disease that she would never get over. Her face was all screwed up. And in that minute, for like 45 seconds, my feelings was hurt. And I sat there and I was like, okay, I had profanities flying through my head, though, I'm not gonna lie. And then I sat down and I turned my head to like pretend I was like having a good time. I was in my feelings. I never felt so hurt. Like I had tears in my eyes and I had to suck it up. And I had text my friend to tell her about it, and they was like, "Man, get over that." And they had this thing, no, bunk that. Like, look, come on, get shake out of it. But my feelings were hurt. Like I had like tears like weltering up, and I had to like wipe them real quick. And she had me for 45 seconds, and I just said, "Oh well, moving right along." And I kind of just embraced who was embracing me, and that's a good thing. Like I've told people, if somebody don't embrace you, it is what it is. That's on them. They lose out on your amazingness. So then I try to like get conversation again, because now I'm intrigued. Because now I kind of want to know your name because I want to look you up. So I'm like, oh, you're in asking them where they. I said, because I'm there all the time. And she was like, it was just one word. It was just so cold and so like get away from me. And I was just like, you'll never have that problem again. And I just stopped communication. And I just ended up communicating with other people. And I learned two things right there. People can be small minded, right? You're in an environment where it's all about sharing and fostering for you to shun me, and you had no reason to shun me. So you made your own conclusions, and the only reason you can conclude is maybe by the way I look, or you're not being open minded to try something you don't know. But the night is about opening your minds to all these amazing champagne. So I say that to say that people will be who they will be. As far as celebrity brands, I think they serve a purpose. You have amazing celebrities who are doing the work, who are vested 200%. They bring attention to the category, specifically like, let's just say for Jay-Z with champagne, it helps elevate the interest in champagne overall. But there's a difference between a celebrity just slapping their name on a bottle and someone who's generally crafted. That's where I don't have a problem with it. I just have a no comment for it. The key is to authenticity, right? People can tell when a brand is just marketed more versus when it's built for real passion. And then you have somebody like me. I'm a celebrity in my world because I just think that highly of myself. But what I also say is that, for celebrities, it's easier for them to move a product because they've already built the work to build a name for themselves. It's easier for them to branch out into these other industries. For someone like myself or other entrepreneurs, we have to really hit the ground running, and we are always met with who are you, what are you doing, why should we buy your this, I don't even know who this is, like ooh, what is this, so it's a lot harder. And sometimes when you get passed over for a celebrity brand where somebody's not putting in the work, it's just like, okay, I just got to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm not knocking anybody in the industry. If you slapping a label on your bottle, slap the best looking label on it. If you're doing the work, do the work. And everybody knows, like, you figure things out, you have your own perception. So like I always say, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly to every topic.
That's what we're going to call this episode of the podcast: The Good, the Bad, the Ugly with Marvina Robinson.
Listen, let's go.
It's so true, though. I am 100% in agreement with you about that. Celebrity brands can raise awareness of certain products, and that can be really useful to getting people curious about wines and feeling more comfortable trying things out. But it is a little soul destroying where people are actually working hard and somebody just goes and slaps their name on a product. They've never been to the vineyard, they probably couldn't find it on a map. So we're looking at two different levels of things. I totally agree with you, but the awareness is something that's positive, and I think you're right on the money with that. So last thing I want to ask you before I let you go, I know you've said you're committed to continuing to innovate and celebrate diversity and push the boundaries of what champagne can be. And your whole story has been exactly that, pushing the boundaries of what people think champagne is versus what it could actually be. So tell me about the exciting plans that are on the table for B. Stuyvesant for the near future. I know you're moving,
Yeah.
I know you're in DC. What's going on?
So, there's a lot in store. People that know me know that I always look to do things that's different, right? I follow the norm for certain things, but I look to find ways of creating new spaces. And everything, in my opinion, should be an experience. When you walk through the doors of my tasting room, it's an experience. So one, yes, reopening our tasting room, where it's going to be a lot more luxurious than it was before. There's also going to be an opportunity for like a champagne membership where people have the opportunity. It'll be inclusive of B Stuyvesant, but for myself, I'm also launching my personal website. And what I'm doing is giving access to these other champagnes that I import into the United States. So that'll be a component where joining a membership, you get access to these other bubbles where we'll do dinners, we'll have like private tastings. Another good thing that I'm really excited about for this summer is we're rolling out our first champagne truck. I am super excited about it. I was trying to roll it out last year, but I wasn't going to make it in time for the summer. And I'm like, I'm not rolling out anything in the fall or the winter. So that should be here by April or May. The first.
So hang on. When you say it's going to be here, tell me where here is, because I need to go to this champagne truck.
Oh, so it's going to be in the United States. So it's going to be in New York, right? But we have the capabilities to put it on a trailer and we're going to hit different markets. As long as I'm not driving, somebody else could drive it because it's more like a trailer extension. We're going to move around. When we get it, we're going to put like a counter together and we're going to just be hitting these states at. It's going to say, where is the B Stuyvesant truck pulling up this weekend? And we're going to hit all the different states. So it's going to be a really exciting summer. What else am I doing? I do have a project I'm working on with technology. I can't fully give into details, but I'm trying to bring in a space where champagne and AR is together. So working on that. And then most importantly, we have some new releases coming out. April is Eminence. We have our limited edition returning also in April. And more importantly, we're just getting ready to, I hate to say it because we're in February, getting ready for our holiday season already. It's crazy because we have like a really good gift guide where we want to make sure we get it out early so people know about it so we can fly off the shelves and put some more awareness around it. And that's it for now. I've also toyed with bringing on investors. I started it last year, but then I just really got busy. So I had to close the deck off because I just didn't have time anymore. So probably might reopen that again. And then just, growing and creating these experiences for the bubbly world.
Well, I want to live in the bubbly world permanently. And I love how you said, well, that's really it. Not too much going on. It's about 6 different projects there. So
literally that's what it is. In my head be like, boop, 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 boop,
exactly.
everywhere.
Well, it has been absolutely fantastic talking to you. I'm so grateful for your insight and your honesty. This is not a good moment for a lot of things. And I think your positive spin on what you're doing is, hugely inspiring. It's going to take a lot more people like you who just say, I don't really care what's happening. I know what I'm doing. I trust me, and I'm going to move forward with my plans. And your plans are epic. So I can't wait to see where B Stuyvesant is in another couple of years. We're going to stay in touch.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be able to sit here and swap my views and my responses to your amazing questions and give more visibility to myself, my thought process, and to B Stuyvesant.
Thank you for listening, and remember to tune in next Wednesday when I'll be chatting with another fascinating guest. Italian Wine Podcast is among the leading wine podcasts in the world and the only one with a daily show. Tune in every day and discover all our different shows. You can find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com, SoundCloud, Spotify, Himalaya, or wherever you get your pods.